Thank you very much, everyone, for having me, and thanks, Minister, for taking part in this interview, which is about 3 times the length of time I'm normally afforded by your office, so I look forward to it. I think today is actually an excellent day to have this conversation for 2 reasons. First of all, it's exactly, correct me if I'm wrong, 1 year to the day from when you introduced Bill C-11. And secondly, from what I read, it could actually pass the Senate today. So I wanted to start off just by kind of setting the table with, if Bill C-11 does become law, and I certainly don't, I'm in the middle here, I'm not endorsing the position on the stage, but if it does become law, what is your objective? What do you hope happens as a result of that law?
Well, to change the world, to have a level playing field, to support you guys, to help you do what you do best, which is, make us think, laugh, cry sometimes, everything at the same time, keep being the best in the world, supporting our independent industry, supporting our actors, our creators. And you're right, Vassy. A year ago, if I asked you where were you guys, you would say, I don't know, at this date? Well, not sure. But I remember this morning, and it hit me. A year ago, I was doing a press conference at this moment, tabling Bill 11. Guys, that's a year ago. That's 365 days. That's a long process. It's been tough. It's still tough, but thanks to you, we'll do it. It should come back from the Senate today, and it's going to be a game changer.
I'll have a few questions for you about what happens now when it comes back from the Senate, because that was a process in and of itself. But this isn't the first iteration of you trying to update the Broadcasting Act. And it took a while the last time. It faced a lot of pushback as well. What mistakes did you learn from that you would say you rectified in this version?
Well, first, the last time that this bill was updated, that was 1991, right? I had black hair first, and we would listen to music on the what do you call it, the Sony
Walkman?
Walkman. We would go to Blockbusters to rent movies. This is the bill we're working with still today. It has not changed. And I think that the first time we did hear some concerns, but maybe we're not quick enough to adapt to the concerns to make the changes. This time we did. We've been consulting, talking, discussing, and opening our doors to everyone, and not seeing like an us and them or the streamers and the other group. No, I was looking at everyone and said, everyone has a role in this. And at the end of the day, the bill is very simple. It's asking the streamers and that we like I have Disney, I have Netflix and all that, to contribute to a Canadian culture, and also to make sure that we can showcase what we do best in terms of films, music, and television. That's very simple.
The bill has been, according to the Senate's clerk, the longest study the Red Chamber has ever conducted. What does that tell you?
That it's been long.
Beyond that.
That's the only note that I brought, because I would have forgotten. It was in the House. It started on February 2nd. 80 witnesses in the House, 12 meetings, 52 briefs in the Senate, 138 witnesses, 31 meetings, 70 hours, 67 written briefs, 73 amendments. It's the longest bill. It took a while. It's not over, but we'll make it.
In the Senate particularly, right? It's not just the length of time, but the amount of amendments. 26 amendments, I believe, to 12 clauses of the bill. Clearly, senators feel like it needed improvements or needed changes, and that they wanted to make sure there were additional voices added to the group of voices that already existed. What does that tell you?
Well, it's fine, and as I said, I approached this with open hands and say, listen, if you can help us improve, but there are things that cannot change, that will not change, that I will not accept. This bill is there to support our Canadian culture, our creators, our film producers, our directors, our actors, our musicians. It's there for that. If an amendment comes and changes that, then it's no.
So specifically, what part of the bill is immovable for you? Because there's 26 of them here. Are you saying right now that there's no blanket acceptance from you of those 26?
Well, yes, the blanket is that nothing that weakens that. I want this bill to strengthen our system. I want a level playing field. I want a modern bill. I want something that takes into consideration that we've changed the way, for example, we look at things like a telephone has become a television. We can also shoot or edit on a tablet. So that has to take into consideration. Canadian content, it has changed. Should it be evaluated the same way? Should we put more emphasis on IP, on Canadian ownership, this and that? I think that things have changed, things have evolved, and the bill has to adapt to the reality.
Are there amendments that you've already looked at that you have decided to reject?
Well, we'll see when the bill comes back, because I can't. It's in the Senate. I don't think the senators would be.
They've talked a lot about what those amendments are. Yeah.
But there are amendments that have zero impact on the bill, and others that may have some, and those we will not accept them.
So I remember a few years back covering a similar back and forth between the Senate and the House, or the minister in charge, and it was around assisted dying legislation. And what I remember was very clearly that back and forth and the insistence on senators of making sure their amendments were attached to the final law ended up dragging out the process through which that happened. You heard from the room, there are some who want to see this bill cross the finish line sooner rather than later. Yeah. Are you concerned about the potential for that?
Not really, because we had, as I said, so many meetings, so many witnesses, both in the House and in the Senate. Our doors, I mean, my staff who's here because there's some lunch, they met with so many people on all sides that I think that we're in a good spot, and this should become reality in the next few days.
I'll challenge you respectfully on that, just because of the way.
I'm used to that.
Yeah, I know you are.
She does that all the time.
The way in which I've listened to senators talk about this, they are extremely, they may not agree with your sense of the bill, but they are passionate in the arguments that they've been making. And again, I keep thinking, I listen to them, and I know it's a different subject, but I remember that's the way they were with MAID, and they wanted all their amendments accepted, and there were negotiations that took place. It really did drag things out. What are you prepared to do to ensure that doesn't happen? And if you do that, is that really democratic?
Well, hey, democracy. Because we had a lot of conversations with them on the way in, and we try to be very inclusive. So there's a lot of amendments that we will accept. So it brings a number of amendments to a higher level, more than the average, I would say, that have no impact, I would say, on the things that we want to do. So I think they're going to be fairly happy. But again, the object of the bill will not change. And for me, status quo is not a plan. It's never been a plan. And I hate status quo, actually.
So I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I do think people in this room would be interested to hear your assessment. How soon do you think this could become law then?
If it comes back from the Senate today, then we'll answer back from the House in the next few days. If all goes well, next week.
You think this could become law as soon
if
as
all
next
goes
week?
Well, yes.
What does all goes well mean? All goes well.
There, well, all goes well. You're the Anglophone here. You know better.
Okay, so as soon as next week, I think that's significant. I do, and there are supporters in this room, but there are also there has been a lot of criticism, more than any bills that I've covered, and so I want to take this opportunity to give you the chance to respond to some of that specific criticism. I'm going to start actually on some of the amendments that were proposed, and particularly a concern raised by people in this room around, I believe it's 3F. Some stakeholders view that amendment as contradicting the desire that you've stated today and in other instances to level the playing field, because it would kind of create, they would characterize it as two different standards where foreign streamers would be permitted to use fewer Canadian creators than Canadian broadcasters. Do you concede that that doesn't really jive with your stated objective?
Well, I understand the concerns, and I had many meetings on this, and yesterday again with Reynolds, who's doing an amazing job, and with the team and other people that came to see, and I totally understand that. But you're going from zero obligation to a lot of obligation. So before, the streamers had no obligation at all. We say we're bringing them here. Is that perfect? No. Is this bill perfect? No, but it's a hell of a good bill, which means that there were a lot of concessions on one side or the others, and this at the end is going to bring a lot to the industry, a lot to independent producers, a lot to Canadian content. If I could give everything, I would, but I'm not even in the position of giving everything because I'm in a minority in the House and in the Senate. So at the end of the day, not perfect, but pretty good bill.
So is the argument distilled to something is better than nothing?
This bill does a lot.
But I mean, in this specific instance of 3F, if you're allowing foreign broadcasters, are you saying basically, well, they have some standards now as opposed to none before, and is that really adequate?
They still have high standards, and there's stuff that I'm asked the team to review this too, see if what we can do also through the policy direction that I'm going to send to the CRTC chair quite soon if the bill is adopted next week.
So am I to interpret from that that you could direct the CRTC to make it more stringent for foreign actors?
I could direct the CRTC in many things in many ways.
Okay, but my question is more specific.
I'm working on my English.
I feel, yes, that's an interesting statement. No, my question is more specific to this instance. So again, the contradiction that people in this room are pointing out is around foreign streamers using fewer Canadian creators than Canadian broadcasters. Are you insinuating today that you could direct the CRTC to change that?
We're looking at options. I asked the team to look at different options, but the streamers will be using a lot of our workforce because it's among the best in the world. And they're amazing in what they do.
But this is about legislating it, not just hoping that they do something.
It's about having a very good bill, and the directives will come after, and we'll see what's in the directive. But people are looking at it.
Are you saying essentially that you're open to the idea of directives addressing this specific issue?
I'm open to looking at it, definitely. That's what I told the Reynolds and friends yesterday.
Okay. Some of the other criticisms levied against this bill.
Were others?
Just a few. I know you're unfamiliar with them. And these come from big companies, big technology companies.
Shocking.
I'm going to read to you. YouTube says if this bill is put into practice, that means that when viewers come to the YouTube homepage, they're served content that a Canadian government regulator has prioritized rather than content they're interested in. Your response?
No.
Why no?
The answer is no. There's been a lot of things said about the bills and rumors and this and that. The bill, I said, it's very simple. It's about streamers contributing to Canadian culture, and I think they'll get it. I mean, I've spoke with people from Netflix, from Disney, and others, and I mean the world has changed, and we'll have to work together on this. I think they got that. So there were some concerns about social media, but I always said it. This is not about users. I mean, and our online creators. It's beautiful. I mean, what we do is amazing. But the bill is not about them. It is not about them. It's about the platforms. That's it.
But if you're, for example, forcing the platform to prioritize Canadian content, it comes at the expense of an algorithm that currently exists that favors, the popularity, for example, of that content. Does it not?
What I'm saying is I'm interested in the result. I'm not saying what to do. It's the result. I want our film showcase, what we do in terms of television, and what more Canadian music showcase. It could be done in different ways. If they want to do it through the algorithms, it's up to them. I'm not going to tell them to touch the algorithms.
CRTC will not direct anything like that.
The CRTC will not say change the algorithm this way or that way. They can never do that, and that's not the intention. They can advertise on their own webpage. They could buy billboards. I don't know. There's so many ways to be creative. But at the end of the day, we need to see more of us.
The concern is, again, that it's at the expense of a system that already exists that provides money, provides an income to those users, right? That's the concern they have voiced to you.
Of course, because it works, because through that, they send a lot of people lobbying for changes that, in my opinion, in our opinion, in the opinion of the House and in the Senate, not necessary, because C11 is not about them. It's not about regulating what they do. It's not, I mean, can you imagine for a second the CRTC, I don't know how many employees they have, a couple of hundred, watching everything that's uploaded every day, millions of videos? It's impossible. We're not there to watch the content. We're not there to pass a judgment on the content. We just want to make sure that if, for example, a social media is used as a streamer, right, to replace a streamer, then the things should be the same. For example, if you're using YouTube to listen to music that you would do the same on Spotify, then that song should be treated the same. That's it. You don't use one to escape the other. That's it.
So your contention is that content users have nothing to worry about, even though the platforms through which they put their content out there will have a new dictate.
Because in all due respect to YouTube, they don't want to be regulated, so that's what they tell them, but that's not the case.
So you think those those individual creators their concerns are not valid?
It's not about them. But we met with them, but it's really not about them. It's about the platforms. It's really about the platforms, not about them. Even if we laugh what they do, but.
In the Senate, Senator David Adams Richards, who was rather in 2017, I believe, appointed by the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister, won the Giller Prize. He's an acclaimed author. He says, this law will be one of scapegoating all those who do not fit into what our bureaucrats think Canada should be. We have filled the world with our talent, but not because of the Minister of Heritage. We have spread our books and movies across the world, but it is not because of some formula. I put that statement to you in the vein of the criticism that, and you hear this often from conservatives, that this will be around, you or the CRTC or a bureaucrat or a politician deciding what is Canadian content, what is Canadian culture, and you will be the ultimate arbiter of that. What is your response to that criticism?
No. That's true.
So who will be the arbiter of it?
You may understand that I may disagree with the Conservatives at this moment, especially on this one.
But a senator appointed by your Prime Minister as well.
The Conservatives tried to, and it did work on C-10. I don't know if you guys remember the debate on C-10, but instead of debating the bill, then we started talking about freedom of speech, which has nothing to do with this bill. So I'm not going to pick what people see or choose. I mean, zero. You can, tomorrow morning, after C-11 passes, after the policy direction, everything, you will go there and watch whatever you want at the time that you want. Hopefully you watch Canadian content. Your call.
But not hopefully, because the CRTC will create a set of regulations through which those platforms have to prioritize Canadian content,
Well, there will be more Canadian content. That doesn't mean you take out everything and you put Canadian content. No, there's great stuff from everywhere around the world. But I think we're pretty good at what we do, and we should see a little bit more of us because we're beautiful. Let's put some beautiful stuff there.
I'm not going to disagree that Canadian content is great. I'm not the one to say. Myself and my colleagues contribute to it, but I don't want to dismiss the concern that they're putting forward just because it's also the opposition's concern as well, right? Free speech is a big issue for a lot of people in this country, and they don't want to see it regulated. Can you qualify very specifically what you see the role of the CRTC in this then?
Free speech is important for all of us, for me too. For you, for everyone in this room. So is freedom of the press, by the way. That's why you have another bill that it's being debated.
You can spend another hour on C-18,
on that one, but that's a very important bill, which is asking also the tech giants to contribute to, regional and journalism. And quickly, 460 news room closed across the country in the last years. Small radios, local radios, big radios, print and this and that. So we're bringing this bill, it's also in the Senate, to make sure that those that work very hard, like Vassy and others, and produce good stuff, well, that good stuff is compensated by the tech giants that make a lot of money with that. So, and I completely lost where I was.
Yeah, you changed to a different subject. I was asking you.
I'm a politician.
I'm familiar with the tactic. I was asking you specifically if you could qualify what the CRTC is going to be doing when this bill becomes law.
Yeah, well, after the bill passes, if it hopefully passes, then I will send my directive to the CRTC. The CRTC will take that. Well, there'll be consultation on the directive, so you guys will have a say if you want to participate to the consultation. Then the CRTC will take the directive that I send them, and they will set the rule. They will draft the regulations, also consult on the regulations, and then implement them, and then they will be regular. We made sure that it was public, and there will be a lot of regulations as we go. So the CRTC, what I'm telling him, this is the carré de sable in French, the where you can play, the what?
The
sandbox.
Parameters,
yeah. The parameters, the sandbox that they will set, and this is what the players have to respect. But they're not going to be judging the content of social media users. That wouldn't make any sense for anyone.
So provide us with an example of what they will be doing, like something specific. Are they going to be looking at YouTube and saying, you don't have enough Canadian content here, here's how I'm going to enforce that? Like, what exactly will they be doing?
Well, one of the things that they will do at the beginning is extremely important is also that they're going to review Canadian content, because things have changed. Last time Canadian content reviewed was, I think, 1984 or something like that, around that year. I may be mistaken, even before the bill was updated. So we have to update that, and the bill gives already directions to the CRTC at what to look when you update Canadian content. One of the things is ownership of IP. I think it's extremely important for our producers, for our people there, to be able to own their IP using our workers who are extremely amazing. So who's part of the leading teams, the directors, the producers, this and that. So those are things that the CRTC will have to take into consideration when they modernize. So this is one of the first things, if you want me to be precise,
yes,
one of the first things I will ask them to do.
Does the CRTC have the experience or resources to implement the directives you'll be giving them?
Everything they need today? Probably not.
Will you give it to them?
Yes.
In the budget?
I got it in the other budget.
So nothing new?
Preemptively, I got a couple of millions for them, yeah.
So that money has not been spent yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
So in preparation of this, there's a few things we're doing. Like we're, of course, made some changes at the CRTC. I went and got some money through the budget to make sure that they would have the necessary resources. But they also have to adapt. But the CRTC, I know a lot of people like to criticize them, and they're far from being perfect, but they did adapt throughout history because things have changed through time. So we're asking them once again to adapt to this, and they said, okay, you want us to do that? Give me the means, the resources, and I say, okay, here's the money, and they're working on that.
So the money hasn't been spent yet, but the money comes from the last budget. It won't be new money in the next budget.
Unless Krista gives me some more, but I don't think
Have you asked for it?
No, okay, tell you it's a secret. I'm going to lose my job.
Fine, it's a small room. It's okay.
Yeah, between us.
I just have a few minutes left, as the countdown clock indicates. So I wanted to actually ask you a question political in nature to conclude. This is actually a bigger kind of macro political issue because there's a Democrat and a Republican who have written to Catherine Tai in the United States asking them to take a closer look at this bill if it becomes, even in its current form, but if it becomes law. And essentially, they're making the argument that this would mandate preferential treatment for Canadian content and deprive U.S. creatives of the North American market access they were promised under the USMCA. How worried are you about a challenge to this from the U.S.?
I'm not worried because we think it's compliant with all our trade obligations, because we did work with our trade experts throughout the process. We've been consulting, and it's not specific to American platforms. It touches everything. I mean, Canadian platforms also, or Europeans, or any platform. It's not directed at them. Of course, a lot of them are Americans, but we have local, we have Canadians, we have others. And even on the other side, the Americans on both sides of the room, the Republicans and Democrats, are starting to look at this and say, you know what, maybe there's something we can do this here. And the world is watching Canada too, not only the Americans. But I was heading the delegation at the G7 meeting in Germany of the ministers of culture, and they were all extremely interested in what we were doing in 3 bills, C11 on culture, C18 on journalism, and the bill that is coming soon in a theater near you on online safety, because what happens online doesn't stay online. Online hate is real hate, and things have to change.
So just to be clear, though, you're not, I mean, this, I'm reading today in the Globe and Mail that this is probably on the agenda between the meeting on the meeting between President Biden and the Prime Minister. It doesn't look like the U.S. Embassy, for example, is backing away from the idea that they feel this is preferential treatment for actors outside of their country and could go against the USMCA. Are you concerned, for example, they'll file something around the trade issue?
We've consulted. We've worked with trade experts because we knew ahead of time that this could be raised. But no, we're not.
In your view, it meets the USMCA?
Yes, in our view.
And you have a legal opinion to that effect?
We have opinions. I don't know how legal they are, but maybe some of the
I hope they are. And I am out of time, so I'll leave it there. Minister, I really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.